Welcome to another episode of Meet the Author with Joe Evangelisti, a dude that I've had the pleasure to work with in the past, and this is his second book coming out called Multiplicity. This one's cool because I was on a run one day. He texted me, "Hey, I got an idea for a book. The title is this." I said yes immediately whenever he said the title. And so, Joe, thanks for being here, man. You're going to talk about your book, what you're working on, and the great charity that you are contributing to with this book. So thanks for being here, man.
Yeah, brother. Thanks for having me on. Excited.
So this book is how to unlock the 5 freedoms and create an unlimited abundance in every part of your life. The 5 freedoms, maybe you want to talk about them, but there's the 5th one's my favorite, and I think it's your favorite also. So tell me the 5 freedoms, and then also tell me your favorite and why.
Yeah. So, Mike, what's the number one freedom everyone always talks about, right? Is financial freedom. Like, we're always chasing, like, all these entrepreneurs and influencers and social media gurus. Like, you see people stacked up with cash and like always talking about the trinkets they're buying and the things they're buying. And so, financial freedom is always like the number one focus for everything, right? And so, leading into this book, I was that guy like years ago, like 10 years ago. I thought to myself, man, if I create enough money, I'll get opportunity. I'll get whatever it is that I'm chasing. I'll get the big home. I'll get the dream car. I'll have all the time I want to do whatever I want, right? And I learned the absolute hardest way possible, like by literally burning myself on both ends. By like, I remember vividly, as a younger entrepreneur, 2 young kids, right? A newer wife, two dogs, a new house, a mortgage payment, like literally working like 70 hours a week, 80 hours a week, 90 hours a week. Like, how far can I push it, like, to get to that success level? And man, I almost burn out. Like I don't know if you've ever been to that place. I just felt like I was chasing, like just running. Like how hard. I'm sure a lot of the people who listen to this, especially the replay viewers and stuff like that. Am I good, Matt? Matt's standing over me. Like, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you great.
He's not happy with me for some
reason. Is that
reason.
Matt Atkinson? He's a hell of an emailer. He's a hell of an emailer. This guy.
He's standing over my shoulder. I was like, sometimes the AV isn't right, man. He's gonna hawk over me. So, you might have found yourself in this moment though, where like you're chasing or you feel like you can't like grasp. And the thing is, Mike, I was making money. Like, I had what everyone's definition of success was, right? Like, people would be like, "Oh man, you're doing so well. You're killing it. I want to be like you." And like, but meanwhile, like internally, like I was imploding. Like, I wasn't taking care of my body. I wasn't taking care of myself, my mental. I was like stressed out. I was constantly anxious. I was constantly freaked out about the next deal. Like, I felt like if I ran harder and ran faster, I'd find more success. And I almost ran into a brick wall. I was having like a midlife like panic attack, and it was only in my early 30s, right? And so I realized very quickly, and I had to slow down and regroup. And that's when I really started kind of looking around, and I hired some mentors and some coaches and started paying attention to other successful entrepreneurs and what they did. And I realized that it's not all about that financial freedom. It's not chasing the dollar. It's becoming a better person that's going to create and unlock the financial opportunities. And that's when I took a step back and realized like these other things that have to bolt onto that to make you successful.
Man, that's amazing. I listen to Jordan Peterson. He always talks about chasing money. Those people who are always chasing it never seem to really get what they're looking for. And it's amazing once you change your lifestyle, and that's what you're all about, is legacy wealth investing. It's really about building your business around your lifestyle. You're a family man. And the one freedom that he talks about in this book is freedom of relationships. This one really hit home in the past couple of years, and it's made my life so much better. So tell me about the freedom of relationships, because people probably don't understand that.
Yeah. So, and it's a great segue from, where I was, right? At that time in that life where I was chasing and I was frustrated and I was stressed. I had a small team at that time, but they were people that like I was, it's sad to admit it looking back on it, but like I was at that point in my life where I would hire people for as little amount of money as possible to leverage them to get things done. Right. I was that boss. Like how cheap can I get it done? Let me just find somebody. Okay. You're $15 an hour. Sit here and do it. Right. And I had a terrible culture. I had people that were just in my office. I didn't even want to show up. I didn't want to be there. I didn't want to be surrounded by those people. And it was a result of my own poor leadership skills. Right. I had relationships and people in my life that I didn't want to have in my life. And so the realization and what you're dialing into and what you're really emulating and living today, which I think is awesome. So I'm watching it, Mike. I'm watching how you're so true to yourself, and how like even like in your social status and what you're talking about all the time is like you have the freedom of relationships. You get to choose the people that are in your circle. You get to choose the people that you surround yourself with. You get to choose the people you work with. You get to choose your tribe that you hang out with. And guess what? I mean, this has been said for decades, but until it really hits home and it really catches you off guard, like Les Brown has been saying this for years, and you name it, all the major speakers, Tony Robbins, everyone says this, but you become like the people you spend the most time with. And it couldn't be more true. The more people you have to influence you, right? Negative or positive. Right. You have those negative influencers that just want to go do happy hour and get drunk and smoke and, and waste time and Netflix and chill and do all this shit. Like, that's the result you're going to get. But then you get these positive influencers who are like, hey man, let's get in better shape. Let's go like try something new. Let's go start a business. Let's see if we can do this. Let's see if we can create. Let's see if we can grow. Let's see if we can contribute. Let's see how much we can give to charity this year. Let's see if we can take this new business to another level, right? These are conversations that are being had just as much as the bar hopping conversations and, what did you watch on Netflix last week? But the reality of it is it's a completely different tribe of people having these conversations. You get the freedom of choosing which tribe you sit with.
It's beautiful. And what you're doing is you're kind of analyzing your habits, right? Whoever you're hanging around with, you're picking up on habits, whether good or bad. And there's a great quote out there that says, do not practice what you do not want to become. And the more you practice that nonsense, and some of it could be exciting. And, you might be able to say, I really do love Netflix. There's nothing wrong with that. But the more you do it, it becomes part of your DNA, and you eventually become just the result of all of those things that seemed meaningless for the past week, months, or years.
Listen, I watch Netflix. I'm not dissing Netflix. Like, I'm not sitting here saying you can't be successful and watch Netflix, but it leads us to another freedom, Mike, which is the time freedom piece, right? So many people think that like time freedom is I have so much money and so much abundance and I've created so much wealth that I'm just going to have a calendar that's completely blank and I'm going to sit on a beach, right, with a cocktail with a little umbrella in it. I'm going to put my feet up on, I'm going to listen to the waves crash, and I'm going to do nothing for the rest of my life. Well, guess what? Successful people could never, ever, 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 ever in a million years, and you're shaking your head because you know exactly what I'm talking about, could never do that for more than a day or two, right? We would be bored out of our ever-living minds. We could never do that, right? Time freedom is what we call controlling the clock.
Love that
phrase.
Right?
And so controlling the clock means doing what you want, when you want, but still creating opportunity to do two things, right? High gain activities, which is personally developing yourself to a new level, right? Listening to great podcasts, reading books, having conversations, listening to interviews like this, finding ways to level up personally, mentally, physically, right? Taking your person to a new level. And the second piece is high income activities. Right? How do I create revenue for myself? How do I create cash for myself? How do I put my money to work for myself? How do I create long-term wealth planning for my future, for my family, for 6 generations from now? How do I make my great-great-great-great-grandchildren wealthy? Right? High income activities. And now if I plan those things out properly, Mike, and I go and I execute on those things when I'm supposed to, right? Now, guess what? I can spend an hour each night watching Netflix. Bingo. I can watch Netflix at 8 o'clock in the morning if I want to, because I got the high income and the high gain activities done, or at least I have them on my calendar. I have them planned, so I know when I'm going to do them, right? And this is the difference between peak performers and average performers, or people who don't get what they want. It's that they don't plan to succeed. They just run through life and think maybe it'll happen to me. Right? Peak performers plan everything with an outcome in mind. They know what they're going after and they plan for perfection. They plan to get it.
Be careful what you aim at, right? That's what you're saying, is that you were aiming at maybe the dollar before. Now it seems to me like you're looking at freedom. Like that's your end all be all goal. So you started to adjust your daily schedule, and that controlling of the clock really fits into this. Did you start to only put your attention on things that were high dollar, high income? Did you start to say, okay, well, from 7 to 9, it's family time. I do not care about anything in regards to anything else except for family time. So I'm going to control the clock. So this valuable 2-hour window, I'm going to make the most of. But before that, I'm going to make the most of it with high dollar, high income activity. So did you start to change your aim, but also start to adjust? Oh, wow, I'm burning up a lot of nonsense and energy on this stuff that's really not producing anything. Is that what it was? The adjustment of the aim, but also the adjustment of the clock, the schedule, everything?
So I don't think those things are mutually exclusive. Jim Rohn has a quote, and I'm going to butcher it, but I'm going to give you the meaning of it, right? He said that 5 years from now, you're going to arrive, right? Every one of us, if you're lucky, if you're still breathing, if you don't get hit by a car, right? You're alive in 5 years. You're going to arrive in 5 years. The question is, are you going to arrive in 5 years at an undecided destination or a predetermined destination?
That's good. Take note of that.
Okay. Are you going to make it there the way you designed it, or are you going to make it there by accident? Okay. So the way I would answer that question to you, Mike, is a high gain or a high income activity, right? If you decide that you are going to spend an hour or 2 hours on your time, on your calendar, and you're going to block family dinner. And I have 2 little girls. I have an 8 and 11-year-old little girl. And I am in there and I am focused and I am present and I'm not checking my calendar. I'm not checking my phone. Right. And, somebody's calling me, someone's texting me. I'm not answering it. I'm paying attention. I am committed to listening to what Addison did today. Now, my 11-year-old she's mind bending to me. I don't know where she comes up with this shit, but she has decided in the last couple months that she's going to learn sign language. Okay. So she is literally, and she's not hearing impaired. She just decided she wants to learn sign language. And so she's doing this. Right. So if I'm engaged with her, right, and I'm paying attention to what she's learning, and God knows she could turn out to be some professor that teaches sign language, or I have no idea, right? But if I'm not engaged and she's not paying attention and she thinks that, wow, this isn't important to Dad, right? Maybe this isn't something I should pay attention. Maybe it's not important at all. Maybe I shouldn't do it. Maybe it leads into depression. Maybe it leads into thinking that she's not important. Maybe it leads into take that thing to another degree, right? I don't think that family dinner is any less important than the hour that I blocked out to buy a $20 million self-storage facility from 1 to 3, 1 to 2, right? I don't think there's any difference in value. In fact, I would probably put family dinner at a higher regard than the $20 million facility, right? So I think that this is the challenge. People will put these things at different levels, and they always put business first, right? But then you ask somebody, well, why do you do it? Well, I do it for my kids, or I do it for my family. Well, it's pretty freaking comical if you ask me, because you do it, but then you miss your kids growing up. You miss your kids' soccer games, right? You miss nights and weekends. You tell your wife you're going to be home late for dinner. You're not going to make dinner, or you're not going to be home for bedtime. And I'm not judging if you're listening to this and it feels like I'm talking to you. I'm talking to me. I did this shit 8 years ago, 10 years ago. I literally would call my wife and say, I'm not going to be home for dinner when my kids were 2 and 4. And then I would not even go home to tuck them in for bed. And then I would stay at work and I would do busy activity for busy sake. And the reality of it was I was just bullshitting myself. I was doing busy work, not productive work. And so that I could say to myself, oh, you worked 16 hours today, which was a complete farce. It was complete bullshit, right? If I focused on the high income activities as a business owner, I could have done the same work in 3 or 4 hours. But I did 12 hours of bullshit to keep myself feeling good about how busy I was, instead of just doing the 4 hours of important work and then taking the rest of the time to do the high gain activities. Being a better leader, coaching people, creating better skill sets for myself, becoming a better father, making sure I'm home for dinner, paying attention to what my kids are learning, right? These are what make us better performers at work.
In this book, you talk about creating great leaders. Your job as a leader is to create great leaders. Multiplicity is about building a team of leaders around you, right? Which is going to open up doors in many different ways. One of the greatest pieces from this that I really have heard a few times from, whether it's Brazilian jiu-jitsu coaches or people who are out there doing just big things, they're fascinated by when you learn something, you automatically have to teach it. And in this book, you talk about when you do these coaching calls and you work with people who are investing and you have a couple different businesses, but when you teach something to someone, it's their homework to share it. Now, why is this? Explain this to me.
It's our homework literally on every one-on-one coaching call I do, every mastermind call that I do. You're going to find that our homework is to reteach it. And the reason, and it's literally, it's the beginning of the book. The book says, it's like Fight Club, it's what's rule number one of Fight Club. We don't talk about Fight Club. Rule number one of Multiplicity, if you're going to read this book, is you have to share it. And it doesn't benefit me. I'm not saying you have to buy a copy and share it. I'm saying you have to share the principles inside of the book. And the reason that this is so important is because that's how they become a foundational tool. That's how they become something you're going to utilize, right? It's repetition. And when we reteach it, it becomes something that sticks with us, right? Because what happens when you reteach something is that you don't understand it 1,000%, right? And then you reteach it and you're like, man, I put my spin on it. I relate to it, right? Now, all of a sudden, I own that thing that I taught. It's no longer Joe's teaching. It's my teaching. It's my story that was part of that, how I taught that thing. Right. So when I teach the 5 freedoms, for example, or I teach you the 5 freedoms, my story is in those 5 freedoms. Mike, you take those same 5 freedoms and you teach them to somebody else, you're going to have a completely different story as to what financial freedom is, what time freedom is, what relationship freedom is. Right. Now you're actually learning them better because you're ingraining your story into the teaching. Right. And now the person you've taught them to actually has a higher level of rapport and maybe a higher level of respect for you because you've now taught them something else. This is, by the way, without getting like super philosophical, this is the basis of religion, folks. How do you think a book has made it 2,000 years and been passed down 2,000 years? It's not because, and ironically, you're in the book business. Nobody reads a book and keeps handing it down and saying, read this book for 2,000 years. No, it's the stories that are being retaught inside of that book. Right. And every time someone retells that story from that book, they tell it with their emotion and their story and their dialect and how it relates to them. Right. So it's the basis of all religion. And I'm not saying that this is a religious book by any means. I'm saying that that's how we connect as people. And it's also how we create great leaders. We get them to tell their story and be part of what we're trying to build. And that's why great leaders create great leaders. And that's ultimately what allows us to step aside and allows them to go and grow and allows you to create more freedom for yourself. And them, by the way.
Yeah. So the more you share your story out there, it's amazing that your tribe finds you. You're part of groups like the DM family and a couple other ones. And you probably notice that when people share a story, there's a lot of other individuals who can say, oh my God, I'm going through the exact same thing. And I think when you first start getting into this business and putting it out there into the world, you think you're the only one going through it or the only one thinking it. So the more you put your spin on it or share the lessons with the story, people are saying, this person's just like me. Now, why does that matter? Is because you can eventually meld together and solve each other's problems and realize you're on the same wavelength. Is that right?
It's so funny you brought that up. It's almost like I didn't give you any bullet points to talk about right before we started this. It's so funny because I do these sessions if I do group mastermind calls, right? I will do each week. I'll pick a topic. I usually pick the topic that comes up the most during my one-on-one coaching calls for that week, right? And so, or it's like something that's I had to help somebody solve a high-level issue or whatever that looks like, right? And so 99% of the time, because I don't teach theory, I teach stuff that I've been through, that I've worked through, that I've helped somebody else work through. Like this is real life shit. I'm not just like listening to a podcast and regurgitating it, right? I'm listening to stuff that's going on inside my world and I'm teaching what I'm doing, right? And so when I do a teaching or I do a mastermind call, a lot of times it's me regurgitating a lesson that I've learned myself and teaching it to the group. And so 9 times out of 10, I'll have somebody text me and they're like, dude, I know I slipped up like this week, and I feel really bad about it. Like, I feel it's kind of weird to have you like call me out on the call like that. Like I know you were talking about me, and I'm like, I wasn't talking about you. Like I absolutely was not talking about you. Like, so sometimes like literally you hear these things and they hit you in the heart because you're like, that's me. He's talking about me. And I'm like, no, I'm talking about me actually. And sometimes, so I say these things when the reason it's important, Mike, I think, is because sometimes when something hits you at the right time and something hits you passionately and you feel that shit in your chest, like, oh my God, it was meant for you to feel it at that moment. It was meant for you to catch that at that moment. It was meant that that person said that thing that impacted you at that very exact moment. You were meant to hear it. It doesn't mean that, God, if you listen to Ed Milet's podcast and Ed says something that just touches you, right? Ed wasn't talking to you, right? Ed doesn't know Joe Evangelisti. Like, Ed isn't sitting in California, like in front of his, his video crew going, I'm gonna talk to Joe today, right? But that's the thing, guys. Sometimes these things are meant for us at that time, at that place. That right vibration catches you, and it's for a reason. Everything happens for a reason. And so that reteaching happens for a reason. Go ahead.
In alignment with reteaching, that's what the book is about. It's you take it in, you learn the lessons, you go through all this difficulty and adversity, but you are able to figure out some answers, and it's your duty to reteach it to people. Hey, this is what I went through, and this is why it helped me. And I'm assuming it's going to help you because it really did change my life. So the reteaching part, now you did write it to help a lot of people out, and not just the coaching clients and the people reading the book across the world, but a portion of this book is going to help an amazing cause, a cause that is something I really believe in. And Mark Evans is a part of contributing to this too. Mark Evans DM, he put out a book called Me Economy, did the same type of thing where he contributed money from the book to this cause. It's a Tim Ballard cause, which he has people in line with Tony Robbins and the Sean Whalens out there who are all behind this. So can you tell me about Operation Underground? Is it Underground Railroad? What is it?
Underground Railroad. Yeah, Operation Underground Railroad. Yeah. Yeah. So look, I'll say a few things about it. Number one, it's an absolutely not talked about enough thing. When I started to do some research into this and started to look behind the curtain on this thing, it's amazing to me. I said this on the call the other day, how we can literally stop the world on a dime for COVID, and not taking away anything that COVID has impacted anybody, but and there's stuff like this going on completely behind the scenes, completely under, behind a curtain, and no one is talking about it. It's not on the news, right? It's not like you don't hear about it anywhere. It's not on CNN. It's not anywhere, right? And so when you start to dig this up, right, Mike, there's an estimated between 30 and 40 million people each year, modern day. This is 2021. We're taping this. I just can't even imagine like 10% of the U.S. population, 10% of the U.S. population in terms of size. Think about that for a second. If 1 in 10 people you knew was abducted, right, and taken into slavery, it's just fucking unfathomable to me. I can't even conceptualize this, okay? Most of them are women and children. The vast majority of them are sold into some version of the sex industry, sex slaves, sex trade, the porn industry. The reason we don't hear about this is it is a multi-billion dollar industry, right? They make so much money. They find ways to cover it up. They move in the darkness. They are literally taking kids away from their families. They're in some instances overseas where they're not even just overseas. It happens all around the world, by the way. It's happening underneath, right under our eyes. There are instances where families are selling their children into these trades, right? I heard, I read on their site a couple days ago, because we're getting ready to do a book launch. Well, the book launch is on Monday, and I'll get into that in a second. But I read an article that they posted that made me so crazy. By the way, this is mostly ex-CIA agents, ex-Navy SEALs, Delta Force, like crazy military background volunteers that are literally going undercover and going all around the world to rescue these kids, put these guys behind bars, lock them up, find ways to stop this. And that's where all these donations go, to support these guys in their mission. Okay. But I read a story the other day where they found a 12-year-old little girl was the one who helped them. Imagine this. You're 12 years old. She tells the story. Her 13-year-old sister, a year older than her, she didn't understand it, but she kind of pieced it together that the 13-year-old sister kind of went missing, right? Here, the 13-year-old sister now was taken from the house, married off to an older man, and had a kid, right, with this older man. Didn't know. The 12-year-old didn't, just thought it was like part of the family. Like, when you're 12 years old, you don't understand what's going on, right? You don't conceptualize this. So they figured out this whole thing. They were interviewing the 12-year-old, and the 12-year-old actually was able to help them uncover this whole thing. And they got the 13-year-old and the baby back from this smuggler, right? Just one of the very many crazy, heart-wrenching stories that are it just blows your mind. You're like, how does this happen? It's happening, folks. It's happening all over the world. And so we're going to do two things. We're going to do a couple different things here. And I want to try to make just a small dent in this. Number one, as you guys know, if you're watching this, Monday, August 9th is my birthday. It's a couple days from now. That's the book release. We're giving all proceeds to the book in perpetuity forever to the charity. We'll never make a dime. It'll all go to the charity. Number two, we're doing some pre-launch stuff. So if you go to multiplicitybook.com, we're going to do some pre-launch offers. I think if you buy 10 books, I'll sign them. If you buy 50 books, which sounds like a lot of books, right? I think they're $14 a book. You're just like $750. My team and I will do a 2-hour Zoom training with your team about anything you want. We could talk about building business. We could talk about e-com. We can talk about anything you want. Team builder, team leadership, executive coaching. Realize that I charge anywhere from $1,500 to $2,000 an hour to do one-on-one coaching. So for $750, forget about how many books you're going to have. Like, you're going to have me and my whole team on the phone talking about whatever the heck you want for 2 hours. And then the 100 book level, we'll do a half day. And you can either do that in person. You can fly to New Jersey, spend a half day in my office. We'll train you on, again, whatever you want. Bring your team, bring your people. We'll bring you guys to lunch. Again, 100 books, $1,500. I usually charge $5,000 for a 2-day group. One ticket to a group mastermind is usually $5,000. So for $1,500, it's like the steal of a lifetime. Never done anything like that in my life.
It's not even going to you. It's going to the charity.
All going to the charity. It's all going to the charity. 100% of the proceeds go to the charity. And the print costs are nothing. So you're like 90% of the money's going to charity. You know the print costs, Mike, you're the printer.
Yep.
But so or the publisher. So guys, I'm just doing this to raise money. And the third thing we're doing is right now, if you go on our Facebook wall, I have a link open. I am going to match up to $10,000 of all donations that between now and Monday night at midnight.
Wow. I didn't know about that. That's amazing.
So we have an open link. So you find in your heart, you guys are watching this live. You have the next couple of days to do this. Go find my Facebook wall. Go on there and donate $100, $500, $1,000. If you're a big swinging dick, put $10,000 in there. I want to see us get my minimum goal is 20 grand. I don't see any reason in the world why the people who know me in my sphere, we can't do 20 grand. I'd love to do 30, 40, 50 grand. This is a major, major charity. I think it doesn't get enough play.
And like you said, it's August 9th, guys. August 9th. That's his birthday. That's the book launch day. I think I like him a little bit more because it's one day prior till my birthday. So I'm August 10th. He's August 9th. I'm meeting a lot of Leos out there. We stick together somehow. We find each other.
There we go.
So, guys, August 9th, pick up this book. It's going to be a bestseller within hours, guaranteed. But the caveat here is that you get to become part of Operation Underground Railroad, because if you get the book, it's going to help you a lot. And also it's going to help kids somewhere maybe find freedom. And that's what this book's about, is freedom in general. So that's phenomenal. The last thing I want to ask you about is this controlling of the clock here. How can someone, when they're reading this book, start to control their own clock? This to me was the biggest takeaway from the book. When you start to really dissect your schedule and put things down, when you meet with people in your group or as clients, how do people start to adopt this? Is it just marrying yourself to something it's not fluid, it's structured? How can people start to control their clock? Because if that's the key to freedom, you're going to give the advice right here, right now. Let's hear it.
Listen, I'll tell you right now, like, the first thing I tell you is, I mean, I might have said this to you before. I can tell you within 10% of somebody's income when they open up their calendar, right? If you don't have a calendar,
it's beautiful.
Done, right? I got to see your calendar, right? And so we call it the rule of 168. Every single one of us on this earth has a rule.
Glad you got into this.
Okay. Yeah. Rule of 168 is this. There's 168 hours in each week, right? Steve Jobs, well, it's not Steve Jobs anymore. Bezos, right? Cuban, right? You name it. Everyone you've ever looked up, Oprah Winfrey, I don't care who it is that you emulate, that you look up to, they have 168 hours in each week. Okay. And you have to pay your bills, brush your teeth, sleep, eat, right? You have to do all the basic stuff, but you still have to do, and we already covered this, but you still have to do the high gain, high income activities. And Mike, the biggest challenge that I see people do is they're throwing away their time. Guys, here's the thing about money. You can always make money back, right? Really good investors, business owners, entrepreneurs, we're always investing in the next thing. We're always taking shots. We're always putting 10 grand on something. We're always putting 20 grand on something. We're always investing in a book, investing in a business, investing in a CRM or a marketing or a lead gen. Throw money out there and hope it comes back to you, right? You can't throw time out there and hope it comes back to you. It's not happening.
That's so good.
It's gone. So you have one option and only one option, and that is to control the clock, control your schedule, control each and every day. And I mean, control it. People think I'm like a narcissist or I'm crazy. If I show you my calendar every single day, Matt will test it. He's 10 feet away from me. Every day is blocked like 80% from 5 a.m. to 8 p.m. Like, if there's 2 hours worth of gap in there, that's a big gap in the whole day. And you guys are running around with like 3 things on your schedule, wondering why you can't make more than 6 figures. That's why you're broke. You're broke because you can't keep a schedule. I'm sorry if that's tough love for some people, but it's the truth. Right? When you start scheduling high gain, high income activities, you start making more money. Period.
This is a part of another series, but you're part of a thing called the Legacy Wealth Blueprint. It's another book that's going to be coming out, teaching people how to invest in storage units. You're a part of a couple different, I guess, your e-com, your wholesaling. You used to be known as the wholesaling guy. His first book was called Wholesaling Guys. It's also on Amazon if you're looking to make some money through that. He also has the ability to get people money as bird dogs for anybody looking to do storage units. So what the next year, where are you investing your time? When you're controlling your clock, where are you going with this? What are you aiming at in the next year? What of all these, it seems like there's a lot. So if I were to say, what is one thing you're focusing on or where you're going to be? What is it?
Yeah. That's a great question, Mike. I mean, to me, right now, my current focus is the self-storage development and that team. But that's the beauty of the multiplicity, truthfully, is I look at my unique ability as the ability to create and manage and grow great teams, right? Once you understand the effect, and that's why multiplicity is so important, right? And I think that's really a good cap to this thing, is that the ability to multiply great people and great teams. And it's not just for my sake. And I think that's where I think we have to hit home with this, right? Understanding from the book's perspective, it's not about me multiplying. It's about them multiplying, right? I'm not creating these 5 freedoms just for me, right? It's about me creating teams of people who are allowed to create 5 freedoms for themselves, right? There are people on my team that leave work at noon to go take their kids sledding. There are people on my team. I force people to make sure they have family dinners on their calendar. I ask people how often they're dating their wives. I make sure that they're taking time to go to the gym. Like this is about a lifestyle of multiplying this effect onto your people, right? It's not about me doing this. It's about all of us doing this. That's why it's a multiplication effect. That's the multiplicity of this. Right. So I think that's the high level understanding that needs to be understood. It's not about one guy going out and creating success by building teams. It's about building teams of people who will continue to multiply this effect for generations to come. When I'm gone and I'm dead and I'm in a grave somewhere 200 years from now, there'll be hundreds of companies that operate off of this exact principle that we're putting in this book.
There's one philosophy that people need to adopt right now. It's abundance. Right now, people are living in the scarcity mindset. They're all about what's going to be taken away. What am I going to lose? You're all about abundance. And guys, if you're out there, August 9th, his book goes live. It's going to be on Amazon. Multiply your life. Unlock your 5 freedoms. Joe, thank you so much for being here, man. The website that's going to be available for everyone to see everything that you're doing is at multiplicitybook.com. Is there anything else that you want to share out with people?
Now, check out the website. Go to multiplicitybook.com. I'm telling you guys, if you want to get involved with us at a higher level, if you want to meet with my team, if you're looking for growth and expansion within your team, if you just want us to spend 2 hours and explain this book to you in detail and help you grow your team and enact multiplicity, it'll be the best investment you ever made to buy 100 copies of this book. I guarantee you.
Awesome. His Instagram handle is joeevangelisti.com. Follow him, get to know, like, and trust him because he's a guy you want in your circle. Thanks so much, Joe.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike.